Okay, so we're talking about domain and range. You should have talked about domain and range in every other math class that you have had, so hopefully it'll just be review. So does anybody remember what domain is? Yes, good. So domain are all of your x values. Good. So when you're talking about a graph, it's how far left does it go, how far right does it go. Okay, so for domain and range, you always go small to big. So left to right. So then what is range? Yeah, all the y values. Good. So again, you want big to small, so you say how far down does it go, how far up does it go. Okay. So domain left to right, range down to up. So you probably talked about both set notation and interval notation. So interval notation is when you use parentheses or brackets or a combination of both. Okay. And then set notation is when you're using less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. I don't care which one you use. You probably did set in Math 2, interval in Math 3. Whichever one makes more sense to you is the one that I want you to use. You should definitely be able to recognize both of them, but you can write whichever one you like better. Okay. Alright, let's look at number 1. So if we look at number 1, and we want to find the domain and the range. So if I'm looking at this graph, what is my smallest x value? 0. So if we look right here at this point, that's the point 0, 150. Okay. So my smallest x is 0. What's my biggest x? 12. Good. So that goes all the way here to 12, 150. Good. So you can write it two ways. These are closed circles. So closed circles, you use a bracket. So you can say from 0 to 12 with interval notation. Or if you want to do set notation, totally fine. You just say 0 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 12.
Okay, in Miss Dogby's class last year, we did like domain and range, like that. We did set and interval stuff.
You can just pick one. Yeah, you don't have to do both.
Together, and I got so confused.
Yeah, just do whichever one you want to do. You don't have to write both. So. I'll write both, but you don't have to write both. So whichever one makes more sense is fine. Questions on domain? Alright, let's look at the range. So if we're looking at the range, what's the smallest y value? 50. Good. So we have this point right here. That's at 6, 50. So our smallest y value is 50. What's our biggest? 150. Good. So again, that's solid lines, closed circles, so brackets, 50 to 150. Or again, you can use set notation. The only difference is since it's range, you use y. So 50 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 150. Questions? Alright, let's look at number 6. So if we look at number 6, we want to find the domain. So I want to know what's my smallest x. So how far left is this graph going? Infinity. How far right is it going? Infinity. So you can say either negative infinity to infinity, or remember what else you can say? Good. All real numbers. Good. So if it goes forever to the left, forever to the right, you can say negative infinity to infinity, or you can say all real numbers. Good. How about the range? How far down is this graph going to go? Good. Infinity. So it goes forever. How far up is it going to go? Infinity also. So negative infinity to infinity. Or again, you can also just say all real numbers. Either way. Questions? Alright, let's look at number 13. We're going to skip around a little bit. So we look at 13. What's my smallest x? How far left is this graph going? Infinity. How far right is it going? Infinity. So again, negative infinity to infinity, or all real numbers for our domain. But what's different about this range? Yeah, it's a straight line. So my only y value is what? 2. So then for the range, it's just y equals 2. That's it. So it's a straight line. No matter where we are, our y value is 2. It's not greater than that. It's not less than that. It's just 2. Questions? Okay. All right, let's also look at 9. So if we look at 9, how far left does this graph go? So it goes to negative 2, but does it keep going? Yeah. How about on the right? Yeah, so it's going forever left, forever right. So again, all real numbers, or negative infinity to infinity. But then for the range, how far down is it going? Forever, so infinity. But how far up does it go? 3. Good. So you would say from negative infinity to 3. And it'd be a bracket at 3 because it's a solid line. You could also write it in set. Negative infinity is less than y is less than or equal to 3. Or you can just leave off the infinity and just say y is less than or equal to 3. Any of those ways is totally fine. It's all the same. Any questions? All right, let's look at the other paper. So when you're looking at domain and range for piecewise functions, you're still looking at the exact same way. The only difference is sometimes you might have gaps, so you may have more than one piece for your domain and range. But let's look at the first one. So on number 1, if we want to know our domain, if we look at this, how far is it going to the left? Forever. So then it goes to the left forever, but to the right, this first one stops at 0. But then the second one starts at 0, and then goes to the right forever. So is there any gaps in my x values? No, because where one of them stops, the other one picks it up. Okay? So again, all real numbers, or negative infinity to infinity. Okay? So again, we didn't have any gaps. This one stopped. That one started. So they just kind of fill each other in. So if I'm looking at my range, what is my smallest y value? 0. So I'm starting at 0, and it goes up forever, Well, how about this left piece? What would its range be? 2. So is 2 included in 0 to infinity? Yeah, so it's part of that. So then you just have to have one thing from 0 to infinity. And that's it. So even though you have that 2, it's included in this range here, so you don't have to write it separate. Questions? Alright, let's look at number 2. So number 2, this first piece is going to the left forever, but then it stops where? -1. And then the next piece starts at 1. So do I have any x values between -1 and 1? Yes, so I have 0 and I have all these, but I don't have any graph there. So that means I have 2 pieces for my domain. So the first one is -infinity to -1. And it's an open circle, so use a parenthesis. And then you use this symbol U. And then the other side is from 1 to infinity. And it's a closed circle, so a 1 to infinity. And so that little U means union. And so that's just saying you're putting this piece together with this piece and you're writing it as one thing. Okay, so the U just means union. But how about the range? What are my Y values? 1 and 2. So I don't have anything that's less than 1. I don't have anything greater than 2. I don't have anything between the 2. So you can just say Y equals 1 and 2. And that's it. Any questions on domain and range? Alrighty. So what y'all are going to do is finish these 2 papers.